Yeah, I guess the more that you put yourself in that situation, that fight or flight, um, the more you learn how to deal with it. And some people don't deal with it. They hate the feeling. And I remember for years, I don't have it so much now, but I did have for years the feeling of going up and at least once a concert, you know, being on edge, not feeling comfortable, and thinking you could just stop playing right now.
Today's guest is my friend Christopher Guzman, a renowned concert pianist and educator whose path began in a San Antonio mall, begging his mom for lessons after hearing a player piano. From obsessive practice as a kid to Juilliard and the New England Conservatory of Music, performing at Carnegie Hall and David Geffen Hall in New York, Suntory Hall in Tokyo, Wigmore Hall in London, and countless others around the globe, and finally to teaching at Northwestern. His journey reflects the discipline, artistry, and resilience required at the highest level. Chris shares his views on the importance of failure and how that shaped his confidence, how teaching rekindled his love for music, and why staying vulnerable on stage is still the greatest challenge. His story reminds us that mastery isn't just about skill, it's about rediscovering the joy that started it all. Let's start the show. Chris Guzman, welcome. It's
Thank
great to
you.
see you, man.
Thanks for having me.
It's been too long. So you have such an illustrious background, and I'm really excited to have you on. I want to make a bigger push into getting. We've had some authors and producers relative to film on the show, but I want to investigate more an artist path, and there's a lot of reason I'm interested in that, which I'll sort of share as we go through it. But one thing, by virtue of being an artist, you've traveled the world, which to me stands out as a couple of guys from San Antonio, Texas, going to a tiny school in San Antonio. I think of like what this, I want to say talent, but I think there's a heavy skill set that's applied here, which is a result of training and diligence and discipline and perseverance. So I don't want to discount any of that. That by virtue of both those things, it's opened doors. So you're now a professor at Northwestern. You have to excuse me because there's a long list, but you've performed in Tokyo at Suntory Hall, Dave Geffen Hall, you've Carnegie Hall. I mean, the list sort of goes on and on. You've performed all over Europe, in Asia, South Korea. I'm just curious to kick this off. What would you advise someone thinking about going down this path of an artist and a highly trained artist, highly disciplined? What would you prep them for in going down this road?
Oh boy, that's hard because I'm constantly uh, facing new challenges all the time that I didn't realize. But I guess one thing that I see in my students that I wish they would know is just about the human experience is that you're going to fail a lot more times than you're going to succeed, um, and you have to be okay with that, and you have to anticipate that. And I always, I'm telling them, you know, sure, I have some plaques on the wall in my office about competitions that I've won, but for every competition that I've won, there five times or more that I've lost, and I think that goes for uh, many pianists, many artists out there. Um, but but yeah, I think kind of not accepting failure, but using it as a tool to help you succeed in the future, or to to build some sort of um, integrity and to keep the drive going beyond it. To not let that shut down any sort of fire that you have.
So there's a few questions that I have around that, and of course I'm going to you were an artist when we were in school. I was an athlete, and our lives, I think, at that point in my interpretation of the world seemed so different. But as I hear you speak about this, I'm realizing I never fully appreciated the commitment that you had at that point, right? Which was hours and hours and hours of training and visualization and going through these competitions. How what did you have a clear vision of where that artistry would take you professionally? I mean, was that I look, I didn't think I had hopes I'd be an NBA player, but realistically I knew that was a low likelihood. But you had probably a different perspective.
I did, but I didn't know what the end, what the end was going to be. I'm fortunate that what I wanted to do when I was in probably middle school and in high school ended up being what I'm doing now, which is teaching at a university. And I modeled that after people that I knew in San Antonio, and there's something I just admired about it. I had no idea what it meant when I was that age, and even really until I got my first university position. Um, but that's ultimately what I wanted to be. I didn't have any visions of really being a concert pianist, even though that's what I was doing, and I just didn't know what that would be like either. So I guess I didn't have any goal for that. Even though I ended up, going to a conservatory, uh, where they're training people for that, basically, instead of training people to be educators. Um,
Did you always have a passion for music, or was this something that was, you got to take piano lessons as a kid, and then you found
no, I
it?
no, I mean, as long as I've known, I've really, um, yeah, sort of an obsession with it, actually. Um, my mom tells the story; she knows it better than I do. But I guess when I was 6 years old, we were in Windsor Park Mall, which doesn't exist anymore, and there's a there's a music store, Alamo Music, with a player piano upright, and it was playing the Turkish March, and I thought, oh, that's so cool. I want to be able to do that. And I would walk by them all, and the same Mozart would be playing every time. And I asked my mom, she's like, "Oh, you're just a kid. You just want to, you just see it and it's shiny. You just want it. Like kids want toys in stores." So I guess after some pressure from me over a year, she got me lessons, and so I started lessons. Um, I think it was a Christmas present, so I started them when I was 8, in January. And yeah, I mean, I was just glued to the piano. I started with a little Casio keyboard, um, and eventually the teacher said, "Okay, well, he's growing out of this. You're going to really need a real piano." And then yeah, I got an upright piano. Was just on that all the time, and anyway, finally graduated to other things. But yeah, I was just completely involved with it. I don't know where it stemmed from because I didn't have anyone in my family that was a musician, um, and certainly not listening to classical music at home. Um, but I really just loved it. I like, yeah, and I think I found. Um, I remember having some cassette tapes of Philadelphia Orchestra, Eugene Ormandy, and just uh, running it so much that the tape eventually deteriorated. But that was sort of my only outlet, with were piano lessons and that. But yeah, I stuck to it.
What role? I'm thinking about the teachers that you've had
Uh-huh.
because what year were you? Did you get into the San Antonio Youth Orchestra?
I don't remember the exact year. I was in middle school.
So 13,
Um,
14 years old,
yeah,
something like
something
that.
like that. So 94, maybe mid 90s. Uh-huh.
And so that's a highly competitive process in order to get into that.
Yeah. Um, I'm surprised that I did actually. I because I didn't have a cello teacher. I played cello in the orchestra, and I started with violin in fifth grade, just a after school program, and the
And this is
teacher.
serving as an addendum to your piano classes.
Exactly, right. Right. So I had piano lessons, and then after school, public school, after school program, there was orchestra, and they just said, "Here's a violin. You're going to play the violin." Okay. So I was playing violin. I was horrible. I mean, bad violin is just, I mean, it's really the most miserable thing. I love the violin too. Um, so but the teacher played cello, and I really admired the way she played, and I thought, oh, I want to do this. And so she said, sure, let's pick up the cello when you go to middle school next year, because she was also the teacher in the middle school orchestra. And picked it up. Again, was rather obsessive about it, like piano. And yeah, I got to a level where I could could play at a level where I could join the youth orchestra, and I did. And they were, I remember them being surprised I didn't have a cello teacher, and they said, you really need to get one now. Um, and so, uh, so then things started to get real. Yeah, that was in the mid '90s.
What instruments did you end up taking up?
That was it, and it, actually, cello became too much because I was more advanced in piano. I was more serious about piano, um, and I started to just need to practice more. And then I went to our high school, which was much more demanding academically, and I started to I did not have time. So I didn't have time. I think I quit the youth orchestra before senior year, well before senior year. I definitely quit cello lessons. I think I only had a year or so of that. I just couldn't keep both things, piano and that up, and maintain a good level and sleep.
Right. Do you think playing those instruments gave you any perspective on sort of the interplay within an orchestra in a way that you may not have acquired simply
Oh,
playing piano?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's actually really helped my career was joining the youth orchestra, not just playing the cello, but by joining the youth orchestra, I started to meet people that I'm still friends with. Um, and by the way, the conductor of the youth orchestra, Gerardo Edelstein, that was one of his first jobs. He ended up being the conductor at Penn State, which is where I taught for 12 years. So
Full
that
circle.
was yeah, crazy connection. But music world is small that way. But that was a lot of fun to reconnect with him. But joining the orchestra, I not just getting familiar with the instruments, but meeting people and learning about their repertoire, and being able to accompany them, play along with them, um, really helped me when I went to Juilliard, and because I started to read through a lot of music just with friends, and I became pretty good at sight reading. So you put a score in front of me, and I could just I could read what's there, maybe 85% of what's going on. Not completely accurate, but and then that helped me along and actually got me a lot of income at Juilliard, because I was able to. All the instrumentalists need a pianist to accompany them. So it
I
was a
would
skill
imagine.
set that I built up then.
Yeah, that just seems like it opens your doors. And
Yeah,
the more you do it, the better you get at sight reading. I would imagine.
yeah, and just getting familiar with famous pieces that I continue to teach, I continue to play. There's a piece, this French composer César Franck, uh, sorry, Belgian composer, who wrote a very famous violin sonata, and I accompanied it with a friend of mine when I was, I don't know, 16 years old, something like that, and I mean I played it. I want to say probably 100 times. I played it so many times now, and I teach it, and it's just part of the repertoire. But it's so ingrained in me from a young age, and I mean not just that piece, but of course other piano pieces. But I wouldn't have I wouldn't have been exposed to it if I didn't join the youth orchestra.
Can you place a like one of your standout sections of that song?
Oh gosh, of that. Um, well, the last movement has this. It's really gorgeous. So there are four movements in it. It's I don't know. It's about a half hour long.
What's
I
so
usually have the music there, but I
no,
sort of memorized it after 30 years or
yeah.
something playing it.
Well, as you turned and you sort of, I could see your eyes moving, and this is such it's a joy to watch you. I remember this. I don't know. We must have been early high school. I would say, and you had a recital or an actual concert, and I remember like walking in and people were there, and it was just you. It was just you playing, and I think correct me if I'm wrong. I think you played uh, Rhapsody in Blue.
Oh, I played Rhapsody in Blue with San Antonio Symphony.
Okay,
You guys came to all my stuff. That was great.
I uh,
But I
I
remember,
remember sitting
yeah.
there being like, "Holy shit, this guy isn't good. He's just like on a different planet." Like I realized like, oh man, sure I could commit a lot of time. I took piano lessons and I could potentially get to a certain point, but I acknowledged as it was very difficult at that moment to think like, oh, like I'm never going to reach that. And I have always loved that song because of that performance.
Ah, oh,
Can you
awesome.
play some of that?
Yeah, maybe. Let's see.
I know I'm putting you on the spot.
I know
And I,
you are a little bit. I didn't expect this. So,
yeah, it's until Delta hijacked it. I still love that song. But what I was thinking about when I was referencing your eyes is there's something unique about music to me in that there's a it, it provokes an emotion, right? And I'm not saying anything profound here, but I've heard music that creates nostalgia for a time that like I don't really relate to. It's like I can get nostalgic about something that I never experienced. It also creates nostalgia for something that I do remember, but the times that I do remember from that nostalgia are so vivid. It's unlike any other sense besides maybe smell, in my opinion, or at least maybe for me personally. And so when you turned, it was almost like I could see you going through, and I'm curious if this is how you perceive it, but there's a mental storage that I think is dissimilar to other memories as it relates to music, right?
yeah,
It's when you go back, you're not looking at a the score of a piece. You're actually sort of internalizing it. No,
yeah, yeah. It becomes that way. I can't separate it into parts, really. I
right?
mean, you can analyze it that way, but I'm not doing that while I play.
What difference do you think you have in your quality of play now as compared to two different times in your life? One being immediately preceding going to Juilliard, and then again after got your doctorate.
Oh, wow, that's a good question. Um,
Is it comfort? Is it interpretation? Is it intonation?
well, gosh, it's a lot of things. Um, Comfort is maybe one thing, but I feel like I have more comfort now, but I also had more comfort then. And I had more comfort then in that I was perhaps freer because
Yeah,
I didn't, I was a kid
yeah.
and and almost fearless in some ways, and I getting into these top music schools, it felt pretty good, and um so I felt like I was immediately preceding Juilliard. I felt that way. I felt, on top of my game, and probably a little arrogant because that changed when I got to Juilliard that pretty quickly. Um, And then, after I got my doctorate, boy, I guess, after I got my doctorate, I won this competition in France, and this was just a year later or something. And I had to play a lot of music that was written, a lot of avant-garde music, music written after 1900. And I still go there. I was just there playing there in December. But anyway, I won the competition, and then I ended up playing a lot of concerts with just this music. And so I was preparing a lot of it, and it wasn't entirely me. Some of it was, and I had to drive, but some of it I felt forced to do it. And I don't think I had that feeling necessarily prior to going to school. Um, I guess my feeling is it was a bit more fun then, and now it's more my job and it's practical. And not that I don't enjoy my job, but I just have a different relationship to it
Sure.
than I did that. And there was, I guess, also then there was so much to explore and so much to I don't know, to look forward to, but it was just a very exciting time, leaving New York, going to Juilliard, playing with all these uh, really great musicians, hearing the best music in the world, on top of seeing, you know, operas and other shows that you don't see anywhere else in the country. Um, so that was very exciting for me as a musician. It's just every day there was something to look forward to. Um, and yeah, anyway, now it's more pragmatic, my relationship to the piano.
How often do you sit down and just fuck around? Like, are you
Oh,
constantly practicing, or is it do you have time to do that?
I do have time to do it. I don't usually do it that much. Sometimes, in fact, this morning I did a little bit. Um, over the summer, I'm not, during the school year, I'm hearing piano all day long. And even, and this happens to other musicians I know, when I'm driving home, I just turn off the radio. I don't want to hear anything because I'm just hearing it all day long, and I have to think about it all day long too. I have to analyze it, and it doesn't become something um, you know, pleasurable or moving, or but it's something I have to uh, find ways to improve. And so I'm analyzing it and the person, and then I find myself doing that on the radio too. And I try to keep in perspective that I'm doing that, and so I distance myself. But at the same time, it's not like I don't enjoy music at all. Going to hear it, I'll go to the Met Opera in New York. I go there, at least once a year. Go to Lyric Opera in Chicago, Chicago Symphony here, um, and really enjoy great concerts without that feeling of analyzing.
Do you feel like that skill set that you utilize so much detracts from maybe some of the inherent joy you used to derive from either listening or creating it?
I think so. I think from listening to it, absolutely. It can be limiting, and I just because I uh, maybe with the students, I'm trying to get them to play in a certain way, um, and so I try to treat the students as a blank canvas, um, and see what the overall musical effect is. But sometimes you have to, of course, get to the um, nuts and bolts of the piece to really analyze it. Um, I think it can, and I think it's certainly different again than when I was younger. I wasn't analyzing things. I play things when I was that age again, and I think, wow, I didn't know shit about what I was doing. I really, it's incredible. It's like, how did I get away with this? I think about my audition repertoire, And I teach some of this stuff now. How did I miss this? And just even thinking about the overall concept of things.
Can you give me an
Um,
example of like the type of thing you might have missed that you're looking at, you're listening to now?
well, it's just there's a piece that I played on my audition for music schools when I was 18 by Chopin. It's called the Barcarolle, and I had this recording on Martha Argerich playing it, and I loved it. Again, obsessive, and I bought all her CDs um, and I love this recording, and I listened to it for years and years, and I played the piece when I was 16, and then okay, played it from my audition repertoire. Thought I knew it pretty well, right? And I come back to it, I'm teaching it. I taught it a couple of times this past quarter, and they're just things that I think I know the piece after playing it for many years, especially when you're younger. Um, you think you retain these memories, but um, little analytical things uh, about phrasing and markings that he gives that I guess I just never explored and never made sense of, and saying, oh, this is why this sounds this way. This is why this should feel this way. Um, for me, I wasn't necessarily I wasn't imitating the performance that I was hearing on the CD, but I was sort of feeling it. And I guess I was lucky in feeling it the right way. Uh, but that doesn't happen all the time with students. Sometimes they feel a certain way about something, and maybe it's a wrong interpretation, and then you have to go down and analyze why. Um, so yeah,
Do you think that comes from just greater fluency within the language?
um, I don't know. I think part of it is I had a good ear, um, and I had familiarity with um, you're saying fluency with the language, a little bit like that, like familiarity with Chopin's style.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes things a lot easier for sure. Um, and yeah, and I did have a lot of classes on it with different people, not just my teacher, um, which helped, but they can't go through everything in the piece.
How
Um,
much does Chopin's story, for example, weigh into your interpretation of the music?
that
Any?
has been changing a lot. There's oh yeah, I think plenty. Um, I read um, this new biography by Alan Walker of Chopin. It's about 600 something pages long, and about a person who lived not even 39 years, and and but I mean, what a rich life he had, and had a French father and lived half of his life in Poland, and was basically forced to leave and the rest of his life in France, and was basically sickly for most of his life, tuberculosis. At the end of his life, he had to have a manservant basically carry him everywhere because he was so frail. So I think that certainly plays a role in his pieces. It's sort of like um, the pathos of works that you hear in it, and that's something you were talking about. Connecting to that, it can sort of elicit a memory, and I think that's sort of whatever feeling it is in his works, and even in the greatest works. I think that's the reason that they're so great. But I think, yeah, going Chopin's story definitely plays a role. I don't think that's the case all the time, and and maybe not for all of his works, and it's not certainly not the case with all composers. Um, Mozart, um, his mother passed away, and people talk about how he wrote the E minor violin sonata, which is the only violin sonata he wrote in E minor. It's this really super dark piece. It's almost like chant starting off this way, and the violins in unison. And so perhaps he was affected and wrote this. But then he also quickly wrote. something very sunny. So what do you say about that? I don't know. Um, I think there's a danger in reading too much um, into composers' lives and their music. Uh, and certainly it has affected the scholarship of certain composers, right? Like Schubert, I don't know if you know much about him. He also didn't live a very long life, um, but was also very sick, penniless. Um, and then you can start attributing that to, every single phrase in the piece. It's like, okay, maybe the piece isn't about him, you
Right.
know,
Well, there's got to be
being
some room
destitute.
for the artistry, right? Because even, I mean, I guess I'm just comparing it to writers, for example, who write about some version of themselves, not the entirety of themselves, or some experience or some representation of or interpretation of an experience that they
Yeah,
may or may not have had.
right, right. There are other pieces by Chopin. There's a piece called the Raindrop Prelude. It's a rather famous piece. Excuse me. And the raindrops are this that persists throughout the entire work. And there's a story that George Sand, his muse, wrote about. Uh, it was raining, and the sound of the raindrops inspired him, and that's he wrote this piece when that happened. And then if you do the research, you realize that that's all kind of BS. And then raindrop was probably something something else, but it makes for a nice story. So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and honestly, so what? I mean, you know, it's a beautiful piece of music. So
Do you dream in sound?
no, I don't think so. I do have it running in my head a lot.
Like on a walk or driving around or on a
Yeah,
run or something?
you get an earworm, just like anybody does. Um, and I mean, especially I'm listening to pieces all day, and certain great ones, yeah, it sticks with you all the time. But no, no, I don't think I ever dream in sound. No.
So, um, one last question that I actually wanted to address was: do you think uh, good having a good ear is learnable? Is that a skill that can be acquired, or is that something that's just innate?
Well, there are things you can do to help a good ear. That's also pretty broad. Um, I I think being able to, match pitch is um, something we had there was a class called ear training uh, at Juilliard taught by this legendary pedagogue, Mary Anthony Cox. She was from Birmingham, Alabama. She had this really thick drawl, but she studied when she was a teenager with one of the most famous pedagogues in France, Danny Boulanger. She went over there and studied with her. Anyway, legendary person, sort of ran her class like military academy. But I ended up being a ear training TA for 3 years. And she was convinced that everybody could match a pitch. And so um, I think being able to recognize an A, which is what the oboe plays at the beginning of every orchestra concert for everybody to tune to, everybody in the orchestra kind of has that note, in their ear. So training the ear for that, being able to match pitch. Um, yeah, I think that's possible. Fortunately, I'm not in a position to decide that because I play the piano, so all these notes are just here for me.
Yeah.
So I don't have to worry if my students have that. In terms of someone could have also a good ear, but may not be able to bring it out, and that's challenging. They can hear deficiencies in their playing, but uh, they don't have the equipment to 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 show what they really mean. Um,
So let's talk about that as it relates to even being a pedagogue, as you're referring
mhm.
to. How do you? Because and just to use that as a springboard, I sort of think that challenge for that student may actually be a result of something that's not physical. It might be an emotional blockage of some sort, or some fear, something that might be intangible that precludes them from actually being able to process that. Maybe I'm wrong, tell me if you think otherwise, but how do you teach somebody to, and I think in a lot of these environments, it's not so much teaching, right? These are learnable skills, but I don't necessarily think you can teach them to anybody, right? They actually require some proactive behavior, some intuition on behalf of the student in order to actually pull it out rather than you pushing it into them.
Some talent, I think the word you're
Right,
looking. Yeah,
right.
right. Yeah, and I mean, yeah, that's required. I mean, you could work as hard as you want, but if you have, yeah, I mean, if you have no talent in what you're doing, I'm sorry. Um, you're just not going to be at the level of somebody that does have that. I can't measure that talent, but I can hear it for sure. You can hear it for sure, and you can
Where
hear
do you
when
hear it,
people
for example? I mean, I know that it varies, but can you give a sense to the layman how you hear that difference?
auditions. We have auditions for school. Yeah, it's very evident. Um, and also, it's maybe not talent, but someone who has an affinity for what they're doing, not just I've been practicing to do this, but I don't really love what I'm doing. That also comes across too, not just in body language, but it can come across in sound. Um, but yeah, you just it's so difficult to define. It's
Yeah.
something about, creativity and um, being able to being able or wanting to express something.
Do you
Yeah.
So my experience through any academic endeavor has been more intellectual than artistic, and that's not in any way a pejorative. My suggestion would be that the artistic pursuit is actually more complex in that, for lack of a better word, I'm sort of thinking it's more feral, it's more um, native to your soul, so to speak. And I'm wondering if you encounter, look, somebody writing an English paper analyzing uh, Shakespeare, is using logic to some degree, is trying to analyze something, and that to me exists up here in the head. But when you're teaching, especially, and I want to go back to something you said at the beginning, which was relative to failure, right? And even something that I know you've faced in terms of competition and maybe anxiety that you might endure preceding that or going into it. How how do you well, first of all, am I on point here where there's a more emotional component, there's a more um harder to define aspect
Oh yeah,
to,
it's subjective, certainly, absolutely.
so
What we do.
how do you coach your students in those situations? Because it would seem like there's not one size fits all. You sort of need to get deeper with them.
You do, and you have to use a lot of uh, analogies to try to connect with. And I think the great teachers can do that very well, can connect with students in that way and bring something out. Um, and Nadia Boulanger is a good example of that. Had all these you amazing composers, conductors that studied with her, pianists. Um, anyway, there are many others, but yeah, but I think the very talented teachers can do that. Um, yeah, I mean, because a lot of people think, oh, well, you just go in and you just like play the piano and it's fun, and that's what you do. How can you be part of a university? Even people at um, I remember being on a college committee once, not at Northwestern, but anyway, and people being shocked that that this was their class. They sit in one on one, and someone kind of scoffed at it. So yeah, I mean, it's not. Of course, it's not standard what we do, and it is quite subjective, but it's an art form. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a different way of education. I think you do have to be analytical though, because you can't just go in and have someone play something and say, well, um, you know, make me feel something,
Right.
make it more beautiful. I mean, what kind of teacher is that? Sometimes that can work if a student's very talented. I can say, were you zoning out right here? And then the student will think about it and know what they're doing. But sometimes you just have to really break it down and analyze it. And sometimes students enjoy that and really connect with that style of teaching, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does your do you what kind of music do you listen to? Is it always classical?
Someone just asked me this the other day, and no, it's not always just classical, not at all. Again, in the car, I usually just turn it off. On long drives, boy, I'll put on anything. I do like listening to classical. I like listening to Bach a lot. Um, Seems to uh, make the time pass. It's just always very enjoyable. I connect with it. Great sense of rhythm. Classical in the car is hard because the quality is not very good. Um, I'm at the gym. I won't listen to classical. I'll listen to whatever. I'll put on my Apple Music house selection and listen to
Okay.
that. Yeah.
But you're
Uh,
like you have hip hop in there, you got jazz, you got indie, you got regular pop coming through there. Like any of those, or is it more musical?
I like it
And
goes
are
through
those
phases.
just too mundane for you? Like, is it
I
just
wouldn't say they're
boring?
mundane. I wouldn't say they're mundane. No, because I think, they people are very much influenced by them and listen to them. And again, like the greatest songs are great for a reason. I mean, listen to like Whitney Houston, incredible singer, right? And these songs are, her voice is timeless. Dolly Parton the same way. Michael Jackson, that's not mundane. I think there's a lot of sort of dribble out there, which I won't get into, but there is a saturation to of people that want to produce this pop, and so it becomes a little bit generic. But then you get somebody like I don't know who's the latest pop person. I have no idea. But let's see. I went and saw Lady Gaga in concert. This was several years ago, and I thought, oh, I'm gonna do this, and we had floors, so we were standing up, and I was like kind of grumbling about it, and I went, wow, this is an awesome concert. I mean, she really knows how to work a crowd of thousands of people. And I mean, I know that feeling, getting in front of people, not that many people, but, to just be the center and control everybody. I thought, wow, there's electricity in there. I saw U2 recently. Um,
Still
Again, it
going
was several
strong.
years ago. It was at Heinz Field in Pittsburgh. Wow. Just blown away by it. Um, it's not something that I put on, for
Yeah.
myself all the time, and I don't recognize anything, and my friends make fun of me for it. Um, they're like, "Oh yeah, this wasn't written after 1860, so you wouldn't know you wouldn't know anything about it." But I
um,
do enjoy it. I remember, and there are certain groups and singers. I remember liking Latin music a lot. Music from, I guess, well, Latin America, but also from Spain, like Gypsy Kings. That was after Big Lebowski. When they did Hotel California, they did a cover of Hotel California,
yeah, yeah,
which is
yeah.
better than the original, I think.
I would agree.
Yeah, I and so I just listened to. I had two CDs. I was just listening. I mean, really fiery music. Love that. Yeah.
How has your perspective on music in general changed as a result of being, transitioning to more of the instructor?
My perspective of it. You mean
Has
my
it lost any
relation?
of its luster?
Oh, in some ways, yes. I'm not, uh, like I said, I know that I'm criticizing all the time when I'm listening. My brain goes into that because I'm doing that all the time. Um, and so in some ways, yeah, but I'm always, in some ways, it's just because I'm more informed, I guess, about what the composer's doing and the genius behind it. I'm struck even more than I was when I was younger. Um, Beethoven, how many books have been written about his works and his life, in addition to other composers, but just total genius that I won't understand. Bach the same way, and I play to their pieces, and often, I mean, maybe once a day, I'm teaching and thinking like, can't you see this genius? And the students, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, there's that part fascinates me and keeps me going. I think that it's still very alive for me, that music, rather than a common feeling among people that it's, oh, this is something that's old music, you know.
Talk to me about your progression in competitions, how you related to it, how you processed being on those bigger stages, and then getting into orchestras and controlling a crowd like you're referring to. Is that something that you get jitters still now, or is that sort of old hat at this point?
I think everybody gets a little bit of jitters. Most people do. Um, but I've learned to control it. I used to have really bad nerves. I remember specifically this that piece I was talking about, the Barcarolle by Chopin. I was playing at a music festival in North Carolina, and I remember I don't know, I had a memory slip or something didn't go right, and I remember just like I was bawling afterward, like talking to my teacher about um, why am I so nervous and this and um, sometimes you don't grow out of it. You have to learn to control it. The pianist I was talking about earlier, Marta Argerich, she's 80. I don't know, what is she now? 84 years old, still performing, still the best pianist, I think. Look her up. Incredible, incredible pianist. And she talks about her nerves, and she doesn't like to play solo. And there's a couple movies about her, and she professes this. She talks about how her knees shaking and yeah, sweaty hands and all of that. And yeah, I guess the more that you put yourself in that situation, that fight or flight, um, the more you learn how to deal with it. And some people don't deal with it; they hate the feeling. And I remember for years, I don't have it so much now, but I did have for years the feeling of going up and at least once a concert, you know, being on edge, not feeling comfortable, and thinking you could just stop playing right now. What if you just stopped playing and walked off stage? Just the little voice saying it, and just me saying, no, I'm going forward. I'm going to do it. Um, Really, I mean, decades. I think that would happen. I actually know somebody in a competition who did leave the stage. Somebody didn't go well, and he left the stage. He came back. So I want to have that feeling one time. But no, it's it's something you. I don't know. It's something you just learn to deal with. It's harder with I think with piano than many other instruments because we're expected to memorize things as well, which also makes it extra challenging. So not only just being in front of people and sort of this expectation, I hope I play well enough. Um, by the way, my students have this in their own lessons with me, you know. Or I'll teach somebody for the first time. Oh, sorry, I'm really nervous. Or it's like, what do you have to be nervous about? But this is uh, this is part of it. So yeah, competition certainly help with that. Um,
There also seems like there's I mean, again, nothing compared to you, but I've faced my own nerves and failures, and nothing. There's no shortcut to reps, in my opinion. Just going back at it. But I think about somebody in your position that um, could have all the talent in the world, but be plagued by this syndrome where it really limits your ability to grow and take on these opportunities that allow the revelation of who you really are capable of being. But it requires some chutzpah, or maybe naivete or cavalierness or fearlessness, because you don't know what you don't know. I sometimes wonder if we, as we get older and more confident, more comfortable with what we have, um, if we'll ever be able to go back to that lightness of being where you could just
Hmm.
be free, and really see what you're made out of. Like I sometimes wonder if we're holding ourselves
Wouldn't
back.
that be nice? Yeah.
It's sort of to unlearn what you know.
Yeah, and just not analyzing every single thing that I'm
Yeah.
doing. Yeah, for sure. I think I know it's hypothetical, somebody with a lot of talent, um, what can they do about it? I mean, one solution they have is to just not play piano. There are plenty of other things to do in the world. I mean, what I do is not so important, I think. Um,
But it's
and
important to you.
it's important to me, but it's, there are plenty of other uh, wonderful things, enriching things that people find in the world. So, and uh, and if
But
it's
let's just take
causing,
you as an example on that point, though. Like if you
yeah,
had just given up, think about, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but think about how much of you would be lost. Like there's so much of you that comes from your conquering your ability to share this part of yourself. I mean, you are revealing, as you play these pieces, a piece of you that I would imagine has to give you some sense of fulfillment.
yeah. I
You're
mean,
producing something.
it can be very vulnerable too.
Yeah.
Um, well, it's always vulnerable, actually, but
Because you're always subjecting yourself to judgment in some way,
yeah,
right? And criticism.
yeah,
How have you
yeah.
navigated that?
Oh well, at this point, I don't. It doesn't bother me anymore.
Yeah.
And it's not that I feel so good about my playing, not at all, actually, but the contrary. But I don't mind what people say as much anymore. I think that's another thing that that comes with maturity, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I've certainly faced that in competitions. People saying some nasty things, and it happens in music schools, um, and also just getting bad feedback and not connecting with that, and um, but yeah, no, I know what you mean. And if I didn't do what I did, what I'm doing now, would that be, would I still be myself? I don't know. That's such a hypothetical. I can't really imagine doing anything else right now because it is such ingrained of what I've been doing since I was a child, right? I mean, I did consider um, not going to music quite, in my 20s, actually. Um, I remember I started studying for the LSAT. I thought I don't want to do this anymore, and it's hard. It's a lot of work, and um, I was getting a little burnt out. I was in a not a good place in my life, and I was living in Boston and sort of lonely, and it was cold there. And anyway, a lot of factors. But I have a older friend who's sort of a patron of mine, and he's a music lover, and he's an attorney, and he said, "You don't want to go into law. That's not you. Don't do this." He had a long talk with me, a couple talks, and I mean, I was doing it too, and I thought I'm just going to do this because I'm doing it. It's this is a way to make a good income in the future, but I wasn't excited about doing it. So I have, I teach mostly undergraduates, and of those undergraduates, most of them are dual degree students. Northwestern is a very good program for that. It's a 5-year program, and I just tell my students. I have a student, for example, uh, incredibly talented. Just won the concerto competition at Northwestern, and he just went to this Piano Texas camp, which is this very prestigious summer festival in Fort Worth, and he's going to. law school next year. And he has some regrets, but I mean, he's very excited about what he's about to do. But he just thinks, oh yeah, I'd think about, if things were different, that I would enjoy that as well. And I just tell my students that, music and what you're studying is always going to be, that will be a part of you. It's not if you pick something else up that suddenly you're not a musician and you can't appreciate it and you can't play the piano anymore. That's not it. Um, so I think if I weren't doing what I'm doing, I don't know if I would have regrets about it. I mean, right, that's really impossible to say, but it would still be a part of me, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And they're like
I think it's
orchestra.
impossible to grow to the point that you are without the compounding benefits of that momentum over time. If you were
Yeah,
to do it for 15 years, break for 10, and then pick it back up for another 15, at the very least, you'd be different. But the momentum from working at the craft over
right.
and over and over again, do you ever get sick of it?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it becomes a job sometimes, and then I
sure.
have to I have to make sure it doesn't. Uh, yeah.
You ever write or compose? Is that something you've done or
No.
want to?
I did that when I was younger. I think when I was freer to explore. But
Yeah.
I did. I think the last thing I composed was I remember in school. Remember the Nokia theme. It's actually some guitar piece. So,
Yeah.
anyway, I
Yeah.
wrote I wrote this little set of variations. It was an assignment for school, and I wrote a set of variations on it, and I had to perform it. I don't know where the piece is. I don't know. They took it. They took my assignment, but I think that was the last thing I wrote. It was fun. It was, cheeky.
How do you think you'd play in like an improv jazz band? You think you could keep up? You think that would
Oh
be
no, that's a completely
breezy for
different
you?
animal. Oh no, there's no way. That's a completely different language. I admire those musicians so much because they have a freedom that classical musicians don't, I think. And there's some that do both. Like Chick Corea can do both. Frederick Goulda, Herbie Hancock, um, and many others, right? But no, absolutely not. That's that's so challenging, improvisation. Some pianists are like this, and you know, I admire that so much. And there's so much joy in that music as well. Um, so no, the answer is no, unfortunately. I wish I could.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. So if you're by yourself and you want to sort of tickle your own well-being, can you play something in the optimistic, like one of your favorite pieces that's joyful, uh, momentum building, anything in that world? Can you play something for us that is something you love playing? And you can shift it too. I mean, you can do another theme.
To do
I
another
just want to
thing.
I want to tap that a little bit some more.
Well, I don't know if there's. I think my taste and everybody's here, they change all the time, and I'm constantly hearing music, and I'm hearing different things that I enjoy, and then I become obsessed with certain ones. But there's certain things that I played over the years a lot. Um,
I'm just looking at
what's
something
some
that just gives
Bach?
you joy. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, I'll do a little bit. Okay, let's see. Um, let's see. I'll just stop there.
Dude, I got to tell you, man,
It's been a while.
it is such a joy to watch you play.
Oh, thank you.
Um, and to listen to it, obviously. In fact, just because of the video here, I may ask you to play one more thing if you've got it,
Mm,
because I want people to see your fingers while you're doing it
okay.
up close, because it's not just mesmerizing, but it's like if it brings you any comfort, you already know this, but that communication is so scalable in the sense that you're communicating to so many different people, and they're being touched simultaneously in their own unique way, and through that, there's this unparalleled relationship that gets developed between the audience and you individually. It's unlike anything else besides, I don't know, maybe stand up, where
Yeah.
like, there's just like a certain tickle bone that gets sprung into action, that it it builds a connection that's just like, I don't know how to describe it any other way.
Well, what's interesting is that musicians can also read an audience too. They can feel it.
Yeah. Even
If
when
an
they're not
audience is
clapping,
super,
right? I mean, I'm assuming it's an energy.
if they're super quiet, it's the greatest feeling in the world.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, they're really engaged. But if you hear a lot of this, or a cell phone goes off, and then you don't, you're not interested. You
Yeah.
think, okay, I'm just part of I'm part of the show, I guess, but
Right.
I'm not the main attraction. But no, you could sense the energy in the halls too. So, and that's lovely.
You got we'll bring this into a close, but you got one more for us that you might be able to move the camera so we can see one more section.
Sure. Um, how about I just continue with that
Yeah. Can you lower the camera a little bit?
like that?
Yeah, perfect.
Take off
Perfect.
my watch.
You still use a metronome, I see?
Oh yeah. Yep. You gotta practice. Gotta be diligent, right? All right. Thanks.
Thank you, man.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's so great to see that. Um,
Come
I
to
uh,
Chicago next time I play.
I will, man. Two more questions
Yeah.
as we wrap up, which I had alluded to before. And it's going to be a sort of a random one. But do you find, I've always thought, I've found most of the musicians I know tend to have a math brain.
Uh,
Do you think that there's any correlation in sort of the repetition, the pattern recognition, or you think I'm just making that up?
there must be. And I have a lot of students that I have engineering dual degree measures and uh, computer science. I think a lot of it has to do with I'm sure pattern recognition and all of thinking outside the box too, um, and problem solving. I think that's a big part of it too, is the analysis and the sort of the repetition of what you're doing. I mean, this is what I'm doing. Practicing, 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 practicing. And I think with something mathematical, yeah. sort of the same way. Yeah,
What
there's a lot
percentage
of
of your, go ahead, keep going.
no, I
Sorry.
was going to say there's a lot of correlations. I don't think about it while I'm teaching, but I do notice it uh, with the students who do have sort of a math major.
What percentage of them are left-handed? Do you find that it's
Oh,
heavier?
not a lot of them. I don't think.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I would have thought more.
I would think it's more helpful, but I don't know if it is necessarily, which
Yeah.
I guess is a good thing. I'm not, so
Um, this was awesome. Thank you so much. So
yeah.
before
Thank you.
we wrap up, I just any final thoughts or things you think we might have missed?
Oh gosh, no, I think that was good. Talked about students and what they need to think about. I guess when they're growing up.
Yeah.
I guess what everybody needs to think about, not just
Yeah,
not
I don't think
just
the lessons here are unique to music alone. I think they're applicable elsewhere too.
right, exactly. It's just what I do is so niche, and I think um, for a young kid from San Antonio, and this is the thing he loves to do. 4 hours a day. Yeah, probably I couldn't see any other profession. Um, but I think there are possibilities. I think a lot of students, they work more than that for sure every day, and and then when they don't get into a certain school or they don't have a certain opportunity, it's sort of a part of them. Uh, it's very hurtful because you've dedicated so much time to something and you kind of feel like you have no you have no value in that moment.
Yeah,
But that's why it's so important to experience that. Actually,
sure.
that's a whole nother topic about kids and experiencing failure. Yeah.
Well, we'll have to
Anyway,
explore that again.
yeah, that'd
Um,
be fun.
thank you so much, Chris. It was
Yeah.
thank you for sharing your talents and your time. This is awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening. For a detailed list of episodes and show notes, visit scalesofsuccesspodcast.com. If you found this conversation engaging, consider signing up for our newsletter, where we go even deeper on a weekly basis, sharing exclusive insights and actionable strategies that can help you in your own journey. We'd also appreciate if you subscribed, rated, or shared today's episode. It helps us to attract more illuminating guests, adding to the list of enlightening conversations we've had with New York Times bestsellers, producers, founders, CEOs, congressmen, and other independent thinkers who are challenging the status quo. You can also follow us for updates, extra content, and more insights from our guests. We hope to have you back again next week for another episode of Scales of Success. Scales of Success is an Edge West Capital production.